Hello and welcome to today's pelican feeding. My name's John. It's actually the best part of my day. Before getting started, there's a couple of things I should mention. The first is if a pelican should come and sit right alongside of you, or indeed right on top of your head, we ask you not to reach out and touch them, because if you do, they'll think you're giving them a free feed, and the free feed could easily turn out to be the end of your fingers. Other than that, they really are incredibly fussy and they probably won't eat you. That's pelican yoga. Now, the pelicans that we have here are the Australian pelican. They are the largest of the pelican species found in the world. However, we do feel morally obliged to point out to people from America and Texas in particular that not only are these pelicans the largest in the world, they're also by far the best looking pelicans in the world as well, by quite a long way. They're fairly good flyers. They can get to 2,500 metres on their 2-metre wingspan, and the odd one will make it from Australia to New Zealand. Now, speaking of their flying, we've got quite a fresh southeasterly breeze blowing tonight. There is a very high probability that a few minutes after I've finished feeding them, that they will fly past the end of the jetty and go hang gliding on the other side of the wharf in town to amuse themselves. If they decide to do it, it should be really spectacular and worth waiting to see. Their normal range extends from southern Indonesia and they'll go as far south as northern Tasmania. The reason they tend not to go further south is the cold worries them quite a lot. And the reason the cold worries them is they have very little protective oil or grease in their feathers to keep the water out. So if they bob around the ocean a lot or it comes in cold, wet and rainy, they will eventually get wet through to the skin and start to shiver. It is not cold today, but you can see quite a few of these birds are shivering. I don't think they're cold. I think they're just really pleased to see you and a little bit excited.
See you.
The way in which these birds feed, a group of them, acting as a group, will herd fish into shallow water. And once they've got the fish herded into the shallows, they scoop them up with their bills. As you would imagine, the pelican's bill opens and closes like this, but they are unusual in the lower jaw can open right out to form a large net they use to scoop. On the other hand, the American brown pelican, a very ordinary looking bird if I might say so, they're actually grotty looking things. When they fly across the surface of the water, see a fish deep in the water, they can dive in like a gannet or a tern and catch the fish. If the Australian pelican tries a clever trick like that, they'll make complete fools of themselves because they're so buoyant they'll simply pop up like a cork. And in fact, the only way these birds can go underwater naturally is when they're assisted by sharks or crocodiles, which is something they try and dodge. Now, the only visual difference between a male and female pelican is one of size, with the male being larger. And a full-grown live weight male will only weigh 9 to 9.5 kilos. They're not heavy at all. Also, the fully mature bird has a little bit of yellowy brown on the point of the chest that looks like water stain. It is, in fact, a feather colour change because the immature bird is plain white on the point of the chest and the very young bird is mousy brown in the feather colour. Not sure that we've got one. Like this moth-eaten one here. Now, speaking of colours, as you can see, the normal colour for a pelican's bill and jowl is quite pale. However, when both the males and the females are ready to mate, the bill and the jowl will change to a deep picky purple colour, and they will allow the jowl to hang down under the jaw and they will shimmer it in a mating display. Now, for those of you who are particularly interested in the antics of pelicans, the female pelican does not mate for life, but is generally regarded as being fairly sport. Some of you think I wear a hat to keep the sun off. Nothing to do with it. It is the table manners that's the problem, and you really do feel like a first-rate idiot with a seagull sitting on your head. It's embarrassing. You feel like a wally. Now, we're going to begin by trying to feed some seagulls, and it's looking promising. If they're hungry, they should take the fish from my hand. There's a pretty good chance the pelicans will regard the feeding of King George whiting to seagulls as a complete and utter waste of perfectly good fish, and we may see some aerial combat. If exceptionally lucky, could take place over your head. If you get bombed, that's a bonus. to go. They're on his case. Gee, he swallowed it quickly.
He wants to.
Now they're on him. He's in trouble. He's fat the dummy. You notice how a pelican can do a fancy water ski landing? Sometimes you can crash their landings at the last minute by throwing a piece of fish at them. If I get a chance, I'll demonstrate. This bird here is an adolescent Pacific gull. That's the adult form that came whooping through at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He might come round and sample a piece of fish in a minute. And the black swan over there, the black swans are vegetarians feeling superior on a health kick, and they won't join in. See if we can induce the Pacific gull. That didn't quite work. Here he comes. They're a fine looking bird. Sometimes the seagulls can appear quite shy about taking the fish from my hand, and that is because when the pelicans are really hungry, they have been known to eat seagulls live. One very distinguished pelican was seen clutched. Seen eating a chihuahua live once, and that justified that particular pelican's place on the face of the earth forevermore, in my opinion. Chihuahua's a dreadful thing, absolutely shocking thing, shouldn't be encouraged by anybody. We'll wait for that Pacific gull, but when pelicans eat their food, they do not chew it, they simply swallow everything whole. And you'll just have to accept as gospel that they can swallow a fair amount in one hit. And I'll try and demonstrate with the old fools on the platform, and I am of course referring to the pelican. Now the trick here is you get a really good handful of fish and throw it in your direction. You'll get a close-up all right. Now, before we do that, we've got some snapper. Snapper, you might find this quite interesting. Snapper are a schooling fish, and all of the snapper are hatched as females. In every school of snapper there will be a dominant or a male, and when that male dies, the dominant female will change sex and become a male. And the incredible thing about that is the very instant that she changes sex, she realises how incredibly difficult it is to be a bloke. And they try and change back. They can't. They are buggered. And after a while, the male will get a large bump on the top of the head. Wow. Now you notice they can stuff a fair bit in. It is possible to annoy the hell out of a pelican by giving them a piece of fish the wrong way round. That one thinks he's a cat's whiskers at the moment, but you watch, it'll drive him absolutely nuts. And he can't put it down, but his mates will pinch it. Now he's right, he did well.
I got a caught out there. Plate, please.
Right.
Crikey.
Now some of you are probably wondering why I wear waders to feed these things. Let me tell you, only a complete idiot would attempt to feed these things wearing a kilt. Even on a really cold day, it would not be a good idea. If we look out towards the horizon, we can see a small island. That is the only part of Kangaroo Island where pelicans breed today. They do not have a fancy nest, they just have a shallow scrape for a nest which they lay up to 4 eggs. The eggs are creamy yellow in colour and rough texture, and they're unusual that the first egg laid will tend to be larger than the rest of them. That's a very happy pelican. The first chick to be hatched will probably be the only one that will survive, because competition for food in the nest is so intense, a weaker ones basically die of starvation. Both parents go out and forage for food, and they bring the food back in their gullet, not their bill as you would imagine. When they get back to the nest, they regurgitate the food on the ground for the young to pick up. Now, in order to get ahead of the competition, the young birds learn the habit of putting their bills right down the parent's throat to pull the food out early. The problem with that clever trick is, if you look at the seagulls, you can see that they have nostrils on their bills. Pelicans are quite unusual. They have no nostrils, so you'll often see the young bird with its bill right down the parent's throat appear to stagger and fall over. And I'll leave it up to your imagination to work out whether it's partial suffocation or the parent's atrocious stress that's causing the problem. I said earlier that bill's open like a large net. I will throw the rest of this fish off the edge, and what you'll see is pretty well identical to what you would see if you were watching them fish in the wild. As they swim about, they hold their wings up like this in order to keep them dry. One bird turns, the rest will appear to turn in unison like a ballet team. When I throw the fish in, they'll rush forward, their bodies will get a rolling action up, heads will go under, bums will come out, and you'll see they just can't go underwater at all. This part really annoys the hell out of them, because they know what I'm doing to irritate them. So if they tip me over, no photos, thank you. Watch closely, you'll see their bills opening like a large net. You can also see how completely and utterly hopeless they are at going underwater, and it drives them absolutely nuts. Also see how wet they're becoming because they lack that natural waterproofing oil and grease in their feathers to keep them dry. Now just remember they should go hang gliding in a few minutes. That completes a really splendid pelican feeding. Thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as you can.
Thank you.